How do you get better by losing a max contract player? This is exactly what the Denver Nuggets did this offseason in the addition of Cameron Johnson for trading away Michael Porter Jr. Smart moves like these have been the name of the game for Denver all offseason. No blockbusters, no big headlines, just smart basketball moves that turn them into the biggest threat in the Western Conference. They got rid of Michael Porter Jr. for 4 starting caliber NBA players, and in doing so completely shook up the Western Conference, and the fate of the West may come down to just one player. Welcome to 30 and 30, let's get into the Denver Nuggets. So the core swap of the offseason for the Denver Nuggets, the trade that moved Cameron Johnson and Michael Porter Jr. But alongside of that, they also added in a few guys, being Jonas Valanciunas, Tim Hardaway Jr., and brought back Bruce Brown. But Denver didn't just replace a core talent who struggled in the playoffs, they upgraded themselves across the board, giving Nikola Jokić one of the most flexible rosters he has ever been on. We'll talk about that more in a second, but I want to dive into what Cameron Johnson means for the Denver Nuggets. Cameron Johnson may not be that flashy player that Michael Porter Jr. was, but he might just be a better player across the board. Both of these guys shot around 39% from 3 last year, but CJ beats out MPJ in almost every category. Johnson is probably the slightly better defender, he's a better cutter, he's a much better passer and decision maker, he's not that black hole in offense that we all know MPJ is, and really, he's just that 3-level scorer that I had hoped Michael Porter Jr. could turn into. On top of that, Cameron Johnson is coming off of a career year. 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Michael Porter Jr. is still a good player, but don't get me wrong, it's Cameron Johnson that is the better fit for this Denver Nuggets team, and he is the one that can add more layers to their offense. I've talked about this more at length in a different video, so you should go check that out at the end of this one, but make no mistake, Cameron Johnson basically beats out Michael Porter Jr. in every single major play type according to NBA.com. MPJ helped Nikola Jokić win his first ring, but it's Cameron Johnson who's going to help him win his second ring. But none of this move matters without the man himself, so let's talk about Nikola Jokić. Last year, Jokić put up probably the best statistical year of his career. 29 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists while shooting an amazing 42% from 3. He is beyond MVP level production and is simply just putting up a peak that only a few players have ever crossed before. Nikola Jokić is honestly making an argument for me where he is having one of the best, if not the best offensive peak of all time, crossing that of 2016 Steph Curry. And some of the advanced stats do tend to back this up as well. Even as a center, Nikola Jokić is the best passer in the game. He has one of the best post games that we have seen in the modern NBA. He has impeccable touch around the rim, shoots 42% from 3, and elevates himself and his teammates in a way that only a few players ever have. As a center, Nikola Jokić is the best passer in the entire NBA. He has amazing touch around the rim, he has one of the best post games that we have seen in the modern NBA, but he can still shoot 42% from 3 on top of all of that. He can raise his teammates to a level that we have seen only a few players in NBA history ever do. And one of those guys is a guy that they brought back in Bruce Brown. But we know what Nikola Jokić is going to do this season. He's going to be freaking amazing, and at the very worst will probably be number 2 in MVP voting for the 6th straight year. We know what Bruce Brown is going to do because he's played with Jokić before, and we know what a player with the archetype of Cameron Johnson can do because we've seen that in Michael Porter Jr., but like I said, Johnson is a better version of that. But no matter how good Nikola Jokić is this year, and no matter how good of an addition Cameron Johnson is, that may not be the determination of what makes this a championship level team or not. That goes to the number 2 in command and the real X factor of the Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray. Last year, Jamal Murray averaged 21, 4, and 6 on being just a few points below a 50-40-90 season. He had an amazing season, and this is like his 3rd straight year of putting up these sorts of stats. For as clutch and as good as Nikola Jokić is, it's Jamal Murray who time and time again has proven himself to be that clutch isolation scorer, the guy who can hit the big step back shot, the guy that you can put in ISO, have everybody else spread out, and tell him to go get you a bucket. And of course, it's Jamal Murray. We all know that him and Nikola Jokić is one of the most unstoppable offensive duos of all time, with one of the best handoff 2-man games in NBA history. However, health and his consistency has always been a concern for Murray. He basically averages missing about 15 to 30 games per year, and him missing time has always been costly for the Denver Nuggets. When healthy, this Denver team is a top team in the Western Conference. They basically always are, no matter how bad their bench is. But when Murray is out, that is when we see this team fall to a middle-of-the-pack team, and that's where they're not as good as they should be going into the playoffs. But when Murray is healthy, this team is elite, and when this team isn't having to rely on Murray as much as they are, that is when they are at their absolute best. And I think Murray is still more than capable of doing what he did during their championship season, that being around 26-4 on just 33 minutes per game. If Jamal Murray remains healthy, something I think he's totally capable of this year, then nobody in the Western Conference is safe. But even if he still misses the time that he usually does, it won't be as detrimental this year, and that is because of the other moves that Denver has made this offseason. Jamal Murray is the X factor of making them a title contender, but it's the supporting cast that is going to keep this team as one of the top teams in the Western Conference, regardless of how much Jamal Murray plays. Aaron Gordon is just simply put one of the best glue guys in the NBA. He's basically a superstar of role level players. He does everything Denver needs while perfectly fitting into the system. Last year, he went from 29 to 43% from three while increasing his attempts. He was one of the best wing defenders and lob threats outside of the dunker spot. In the playoffs, as we know, he hit 2 game winners, and if he was healthy in that Game 7 versus the Thunder, even a Thunder simp like me would admit that the Nuggets have a very, very good chance of defeating the eventual NBA champions. But Gordon is simply put just the perfect player to go alongside Nikola Jokić, and he's the perfect player to have his game raised by Jokić, and he covers Jokic's inefficiencies. But he may not even be the biggest of their role players in this upcoming season, because my pick for the Nuggets player who can totally break out is Christian Braun. Last year, Braun put up career highs, averaging 15, 5, and 2.5 on great efficiency. He's a good defender, cutter, and has the second best on-off numbers on this team behind Jokić. On top of that, he's going to be only 24 years old. He's simply put just one of their best role players that I think has a great chance of breaking out into a good starter for this team, because he already did a lot of that last season. And another wing returning is Bruce Brown. Now, Bruce Brown only played for the Denver Nuggets for 1 year, but his addition was one of the ones that helped them win the NBA Finals. Brown is a guy who knows the Nuggets system, knows how to play alongside Jokić, and he is the perfect addition to the bench. He's a great cutter and defender who brings that right championship level energy. One of the best seasons he had in his career was in the Mile High City, and he didn't play as good after leaving that time in Denver, and I think him returning back to Denver, that is going to be the difference in him being the kind of player that we know him as. I really think the Denver Nuggets can be the longtime home for Bruce Brown. And another good veteran backup is Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, Hardaway Jr. isn't the player that we once knew him as, but last year he shot 36% from three, scored around 11 points per game, and remained healthy starting in all of his games for the Detroit Pistons. While he isn't the big name scorer and shooter that we know him as, the Nuggets got him on a veteran's minimum to come off of the bench. He's still a guy that can start on a decent amount of NBA teams, but the Nuggets are going to have him as a shot creator and a floor spacer coming off the bench. They won't have to rely on him too much like how Detroit did last year. He is an absolute steal for this team that is going to improve their shot creation, their bench scoring, and their overall spacing. But what about when Nikola Jokić isn't on the court? For the first time in the Jokić era, the Nuggets are going to have a good backup center, this time in Jonas Valanciunas. All they had to do was trade away Dario Saric, and they brought in Jonas. Valanciunas last year averaged 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists with a PER of 20, basically a PER that is good enough for all-star level conversations. He is still a little more offensive-minded focus, but for a guy who probably will only have to play like 12, 15 minutes a game max, and even less than that in the playoffs, he is a huge addition from DeAndre Jordan. And who knows, with the spacing that Nikola Jokić has being such a high-level three-point shooter, and with dual big lineups re-emerging in the NBA, it makes me wonder if we could actually see a Jonas and Jokić lineup, something that I think would be really interesting and something that could be dominant against the wrong opposing lineup. Not to mention, on top of all this, they still have Peyton Watson. Watson is going to be only 23 years old. He's a pretty solid defender, another good cutter, and he's a guy that I think can continue to develop, and he's just another one of their solid rotational pieces. And on top of that, I can still mention Russell Westbrook, who is yet to re-sign with any team, but it is rumored that he could be going back to Denver, and I personally think that's a great move for Westbrook, and that might be his best chance of catching a ring. Denver is no longer that top-heavy squad that we knew them as just a few years ago. Like I said, they have the most flexible roster that they have ever given Nikola Jokić. They can now run a lineup that has a bunch of elite perimeter defenders. They can run a lineup that has a bunch of elite playmakers, allowing Jokić to focus more on scoring. Or they could do the opposite of that, let Jokić do all the playmaking, but then surround him with 4 high-level shooters. Whatever combination the Nuggets want to run and whatever Nikola Jokić needs on any given night is now possible with this team. That's not something that was possible last year. With these additions and the Nuggets having starting caliber players able to come off of their bench, that also means one less injury won't be as detrimental. If Jokić has to miss a game, Jonas Valanciunas can come in and play starter level quality. If Jamal Murray misses time, which he probably will because it's Jamal Murray, then a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. can come in and keep the boat afloat. This is a deeper, more well-built Denver Nuggets squad that should be able to go way farther than anybody is expecting of them. In one of the more hectic off seasons in recent NBA history, it was the Denver Nuggets who may have just dominated it without breaking any headlines. The Nuggets weren't chasing after big names, but they were making smart moves while saving money. They traded one max contract player, and basically that allowed them to make the moves for 4 starting caliber players while replacing him for basically no drop-off. Denver is buying into one of the best systems in NBA history, and they are putting the best player in the world perfectly in position to lead them into another NBA Finals run. This has been 30 Teams in 30 Days. If you liked the video, you know what to do, but I will catch you all later.